So we got some crazy line movement in college football here. Week 4, we've got some. We got a little bit of overreaction in some spots. We've got some question marks in others. But the bottom line is, we have got previews for you. We've got 3 best bets and games coming up, not to mention 3 full game breakdowns, and we're going to do it, of course, with 3 of the finest at wagertalk.com as we welcome back in Jeff Michaels in the house. Brian Leonard is here, as is Jimmy Adams, ready to go college football in week 4. And we're going to kick it off here with you, Jeff, and some question marks around this particular game, at least one team with a quarterback anyway. UTSA taking on Tennessee, who is still licking their wounds from the ass whooping they got from a mediocre Florida team. So, what are you going to do here in this one with UTSA taking on Tennessee?
Yeah, you look at it, first time this season, actually, that UTSA's been an underdog, and now they're taking on Tennessee, and they're 21-point underdogs at that. But between the two, one combined ATS win on the season, all the way back in week 1 when Tennessee covered the 27.5 against Virginia. But, looking back to that Florida game last week, obviously it wasn't a great game there for Tennessee, but one thing that really did stick out to me is they had been basically fully reliant on their rushing offense in the first couple of weeks. I mean, it dominated against Virginia and smaller Austin Peay, but struggled pretty bad against Florida. With that being said, Joe Milton and the passing offense didn't have a great game, but they stepped their numbers from the weeks prior against those subpar opponents. And despite losing, they actually outgained Florida 387 yards to 349. UTSA, on the other hand, pretty bad upset loss as well last week. They actually lost to Army. Not only did they lose, they got outgained by 82 yards, which is their biggest margin since 2021. So through the entirety of last season, they didn't get outgained by that sort of margin all year. You said it, Frank Harris didn't play last week, but even if he is playing, he's not having the year he did last year. He's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns. And this UTSA team is -5 in the turnover margin on the season. They've actually lost the turnover battle in all 3 games. But not only does UTSA have 6 offensive players that are listed as out or questionable for this week, as well as 2 defensive, but UTSA is also just 2-10 against the spread off an upset loss as a favorite. So I think this is a better bounce back opportunity for Tennessee than it is for UTSA, especially with those question marks at quarterback for the Roadrunners. So I'm going to go with the Volunteers this weekend, cover a bigger spread.
All right, looking for Joe Milton to bounce back here and get it done against UTSA. And we're going to move right over into a big SEC matchup here with Brian Leonard, as Ole Miss will be taking on Alabama. And before we dive into this, just want to suggest that if you're new here to Wager Talk, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, because if it's college football content you like, it's college football content we deliver on. We've got previews, matchups, everything throughout the college football season you need to be a profitable sports bettor is just a click away. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and join the family here at Wager Talk TV. As speaking of family, well, they were family at one time, these 2 head coaches, weren't they, Brian Leonard? Maybe not so much anymore, but this don't feel like my mom's Alabama anymore. 6.5 as the number continues to fall here against Ole Miss. Are you buying Alabama in this one?
It's interesting. You mentioned family. Kiffin goes over there as the offensive coordinator. And I still didn't think they treated it as family, because he wanted to do a lot of things that Saban didn't want to do. So now that Kiffin's gone, I think it's a huge game for him and the Rebels. In his 3 years since being in Tuscaloosa, his teams have lost by margins of 6, 21, and 15 in this series, which when you take a look at it, wasn't bad, because before that, the 2 previous losses were by 28 and 55 before he arrived. So he has done very well against Alabama in the past, and unfortunately, he hasn't beaten them as well as he would have liked. He was Mississippi. The reason why they brought him in there was to beat Alabama. He's done very well against them, and the line's telling you that he has a good chance here. But I'm a little bit worried. He was hard to knock off this hated Clemson team, and this very likely could be his best chance because, as you mentioned, Alabama's a team that normally at this point we're looking for an undefeated season. Or are they going to go back to the national championship again? That's not how Alabama's gotten off to this start. But Ole Miss is undefeated on the season, but they've only faced Mercer, Tulane, and Georgia Tech. After taking on Alabama here, they host LSU next Saturday. So I don't think we know enough about Mississippi at this point to think that they can go into Alabama and win the game straight up. Now, obviously, the line's 6.5, so they can cover without winning. But I really want a team coming into Alabama that I think can win. I don't think that'll happen here with Mississippi. Alabama's lost 3 home games in the last decade under Nick Saban. They lost in 2019 to then number 1 LSU before dropping that 34-24 contest to Texas 2 weeks ago. Now, while that was upset in many people's minds and on the scoreboard, it was, a lot of people I respect like Texas in that game, and it worked out very well. Texas is a team that I think is better than what a lot of people thought coming into the season. So, yes, Alabama lost that game, but it wasn't that bad in my mind as it was for a lot of people who don't follow college football as well as we do. After all, Nick Saban has accomplished after all Nick Saban has accomplished, the Tide faithful are starting to question his ability to keep this team elite. And after all we know about this Bama coach, there is no way we're looking to play against him here. Once he is questioned, he's going to come out and get his team fired up. Alabama may not be the best team in the nation this year, but they are far better than what they've shown so far. Getting them at less than a touchdown in this situation is a bargain to me. I made the line 9, so we're catching that key number of 7 here. And when you've got a team that recruits like Alabama does, that has the history of Alabama, and people are starting to question them, that's when I want to bet Alabama. And we're getting them at 6.5 here, less than a full touchdown. I'll lay it with Alabama.
So hard to go against Alabama. It's hard enough to go against them once, but twice you're going to do it again at home. Oh my goodness. It is going to be a fascinating game for sure. Ole Miss taking on Alabama. Another intriguing one as we head up to the Big Ten with Jimmy Adams here, who's crushing it right now in college football and a nice 5-0 college football run. I had said last week the idea that somehow Mel Tucker not being the coach of Michigan State anymore is not that big a loss because I thought the guy was atrocious. But as it turns out, maybe this team is worse than he is as a coach. So Maryland, though, might have some ideas of proving that correct here this weekend as, lost enough money over on Maryland over the years to know that nothing is a sure thing. Or should we just bank on Maryland handling business this weekend, Jimmy?
Well, so as you kind of alluded to, this Michigan State program pretty much unbackable with everything they have going on. But you've lost all closing line value with the side. You can't really play Maryland. This got steamed way up off the opener. It's now moved through the key number of 7. So just not a good idea to take bad numbers long term for sure. However, I do think there's a play worth making on the over. Maryland's offense has been fantastic, scoring at least 38 points in every game, including hanging 42 on Virginia last Friday in a game we were on. Talia Tagovailoa, he leads a strong Terps offense that has excelled against weaker competition. This is what Maryland does. They win the games they're supposed to, and then they just have a lot of trouble stepping up in class. So definitely a lot of points for Maryland on the way against a Michigan State D that was just trashed by Washington. Now, that being said, the Terps have been getting out to some pretty slow starts and allowing opponents to score. They fell behind 14-0 to a very bad Virginia team last week, and they did the same thing the week prior against Charlotte. So you have a Michigan State team that was just embarrassed at home by one of the best teams in the country. I think they come out with a little pride here. Now, I'm not saying take them on the side, but I think they put some points on the board. Give me 2, 3 scores out of Sparty. Maryland will take care of the rest. I like the over in this game, Joe.
All right, looking for some points here in that matchup, and we are looking for three best bets, and we're going to get them here in just a minute. But a quick reminder here: if you have any questions about the games these guys are breaking down for you here on the show today, or really any games for that matter on the card in Week 4 of the college football season, drop them in the comments section. These guys will be monitoring the comments all week long. So if you've got a question when it comes to college football, these three guys are absolutely the ones that you want to ask. So go ahead, drop those questions in the comment section as we bring it back to Jeff Michaels, ready to go here with his best bet this week. Interesting here that you chose a MAC team here with Eastern Michigan traveling, I believe, to Alabama, not to Florida, Alabama, taking on Jacksonville State here. So what do you like in this matchup, and who are you looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, Joe, I believe it was 2 weeks ago we were talking off air about this Eastern Michigan team playing Minnesota and the situation that they were coming up against as a dog, a big dog in that one, obviously, against a Big Ten opponent. But I normally like to close things out with a little bit of that trends and angles look because they usually just supplement what I'm looking at. They're not going to be the sole reason that we're making these bets, but these ones are definitely ones that caught my attention. How about Eastern Michigan? Last 7 games as an underdog, 7-0 against the spread, 5-2 though straight up in those 7 games, despite being a 9-point dog on average. They're beating their opponents by 5 points per game. And as a road dog or on a neutral site, 21-5-1 against the spread since week 7 of 2016. So this is a team you're going to be looking at in nearly any situation, in my opinion, at least taking a look at, not always backing, not always betting, but at least taking a look at as an underdog. And I know Jacksonville State's had, a decent season for what they are, but this is the first time that Jacksonville State has been a favorite against an FBS opponent, period. So not a situation exactly that we can say Jacksonville State is used to, and a situation that Eastern Michigan is definitely a little more accustomed to taking control over. And, I looked at Eastern Michigan's rush defense because that's going to be the biggest key in this game. They played Minnesota, like we mentioned, week 2. Minnesota's got an impressive run game. So taking on a MAC opponent, you would kind of anticipate Minnesota is able to put up some rushing numbers. But last week, they held Massachusetts to just 3.6 yards per carry. You look at Jacksonville State, they've got 76 more rushing yards per game than they do passing. They've thrown 1 passing touchdown all season and 9 rushing touchdowns. But their number 2 running back is actually out until the middle of November after an injury that he suffered last week. So one of their weapons is going to be gone. And I think that this Jacksonville State team, despite being off to a hot start, is one that teams are going to be able to prepare for because they are so one-sided on that offense. I think Eastern Michigan can slow down that rush game, and you're getting 6.5 points, depending on your book. I'm going to take Eastern Michigan with the spread here. I think they go for 8 straight covers as a dog and could be looking for their 6th win.
It ain't broke, don't fix it. Big motto of ours here. And Eastern Michigan as a dog has been a pure ATM machine. So that's where Jeff Michaels is looking. And Brian Leonard, I love it, heading to my neck of the woods here to check out the U taking on Temple. Many people didn't even know Temple still had a football team, but they do. This is a huge number, Brian. I can't wait to hear how you're going to look at this game. Are you laying the over 3 touchdowns, or are you taking them in this one?
Yeah, Miami was very good to me opening week, and now I think they're a little bit overrated in that regard. The Hurricanes are undefeated. They're 3-0 on the season, but all 3 of those games were at home. If you take a look at what Miami's done over the years when they have to go on the road, it isn't pretty. They haven't had a winning ATS road favorite record since 2016. In fact, that's the only season in the last decade they've profited in the role of a road favorite. This is a team I like to play at home, but I'm looking to fade when they're on the road. And they also have a bye on deck. So they come into this game really fat and happy. Um, they could be looking forward to the bye, obviously, when you're playing a Temple team, as you mentioned, not known for their football prowess. In fact, when these two were in the Big East, Miami beat them 13 straight times. So if you're a player on Miami, you're really getting up to go to Philadelphia to play Temple here. I don't understand it. I don't think it's going to happen. Miami's just 5-7 last year under Mario Cristobal, and 2 of their 3 victories this year were against Miami of Ohio and Bethune-Cookman. So have we really seen enough improvement from this team to trust them with this high tariff on the road? I don't think so. Take a look at the Owls. This is their preferred spot right here. They were 4-1 last year against the spread as a home dog in Stan Drayton's first year in Philadelphia. In fact, they were 6-1 ATS overall at Lincoln Financial Field. So they've been very good at home under this coaching staff. Now they're catching a team in there that I think is overlooking them a little bit. And I like to read the betting markets. And it used to be if somebody liked an underdog that they thought nobody was going to want a piece of, they would wait and just let that line go up, up, up. Well, those days are long gone now. And we've seen a lot of movement on this game already this week. The Hurricanes opened as a 25.5-point favorites, and they've been quickly bet down to 23.5. And when you have a clearly inferior team that takes money early in the week, you have to respect that opinion. I've done this so long, it's 40 years or more that I've been handicapping college football. So I can understand the line movements, and I believe that tells us we're on the right side here. It also helps that it only made the line 19. So we're in full agreement here. We wouldn't be surprised to see this line drop another point before game time. So we've lost the 24, but we can get to 23. So I would grab that 23.5 right now with the Owls. I think they're going to sneak up on Miami, and it is a day game. It's not a night game or anything like that to get them overly excited. So we'll take the Owls, who've played very well at home in this coaching staff.
All right, good stuff. Doesn't hurt either. There might be a hurricane whipping right through Philadelphia there. So enjoy yourself there, Philly. As long as it keeps going past Florida, we're good to go there. So Temple getting a whole lot of points against the U of M there. We do have one more best bet with Jimmy, and he's going to look at a game probably flying under the radar here. Not a lot of people probably know about this game here. I'm thinking as Oregon is going to be taking on Colorado. Colorado. You might have heard of them. Also another monster number here, Jimmy. So up to 3 touchdowns, I believe, is what Oregon is laying. This number has been creeping up all week long as well. So what are you doing here against the Colorado team? You laying it with Oregon? You looking at Colorado? You going total? How you looking at it?
Yeah, so Colorado's been a fun team to watch. I like Coach Prime. He's done a tremendous job for the program, brought in a bunch of money, off to a 3-0 start. This is where the fun comes to an end. Oregon's the real deal. They're going to move fast. They're going to spread you out and absolutely light up this Colorado defense, a defense that just gave up nearly 500 yards to a rebuilding Rams team. And the Buffaloes had trouble scoring for most of that game, if you'll remember. They only had 14 points through 3 quarters. The fact is they've been vastly overhyped by the media, and this Oregon defense is going to love the opportunity to shut them down at home. A defense overshadowed by a Ducks offense that's averaging 587 yards per game and is top 5 in the nation in points per game, including just FBS schools. The loss of Travis Hunter also obviously enormous. It's basically like losing 2 high-impact players because he plays on both sides of the ball. The offensive line is a major concern. Only 5 teams have allowed more sacks per game. The D-line is just as bad or worse, getting nearly 0 pressure on the opposing quarterback. One last thing that can't be overlooked, the Ducks have not turned the ball over all season long. They win this one big. Give me Oregon minus the points for this week's best bet.
Oh, what's that? Dion on the phone? All right. He'll get back to you there, Jimmy. It's going to be an awful lot of fun, though. It's certainly going to be a game I think a few people are watching, and it might very well be that blowout here. Jimmy is anticipating. All three of these guys have their best bets available at wagertalk.com. Go ahead and visit their pages, and let's make it a profitable week 4. But don't go anywhere, because if it's college football game previews you like, that's exactly what we've got. Go ahead, click on that video on your screen right now. It'll take you to all the rest of the big top 25 matchups on the card here for college football in week 4. Best of luck with your plays. We'll see you again tomorrow here on the College Football Kickoff Show.